Hello, everybody. Welcome to today's CNCF TAG Environmental Sustainability meeting. Today is Wednesday, the 7th of August. I sent the meeting notes, the link to the meeting notes in chat. So if you could add yourself to attendees, that would be great. And if you have like something you would like to talk about, feel free to add it to the agenda. So from the looks of it, we will not need the entire hour of the meeting, but we will see. One note about the code of conduct. So this is a CNCF meeting, so it follows the CNCF code of conduct, which can be summarized to be just excellent. Claire, is
There is sound. There is sound.
there a sound? So
Yes.
it's a problem with Claire. Okay. All right, let's continue. So from the attendees, I don't think there's anybody new. So let's go to the working group updates. And since Claire has a cursed microphone or a headset right now, hopefully she's able to fix it. Ross, would you like to give a brief update about green reviews?
Yeah, sure. So as Nikki just posted in the channel before, we have some good news, which is the second proposal we've been working on has got merged. And this second proposal is for what we're calling the run step, which is when we run benchmark tests. And so that proposal is merged, and Nikki started working on the implementation issues. And so in next week's working group meeting, we'll talk about the proposal and how we can start implementing. And so now that that proposal is merged as well, we'll kind of pick up the pace on the third proposal, which is for the metrics. I can also just dump the link in for that, the pull request that we deployed with the proposal. But that's really the kind of the update that we're making progress on the proposals and starting the implementation of the second one.
Okay, sounds good. Yeah, I remember that Nikki also asked for feedback, but I think now it's merged. So is there so all the questions are kind of resolved? Or is there anything left to discuss? Because I think this was yesterday, so I haven't looked at the issue since, or the pull request.
Yes, we did a final kind of run through of issues yesterday. It was mainly kind of some naming changes we made in the final changes. So I don't think there's anything open right now. And yeah, we'll go over the proposal in more detail in the meeting next week.
It's this one, right? Yeah.
Yes, this one is the second one on how we run the benchmarks. And essentially what we're doing is we're moving the benchmarks. Now they're currently permanently deployed using Flux as Kubernetes resources, and we're moving them to GitHub Actions workflows. And then we can run those workflows just during the pipeline run. And also because GitHub Actions workflows, people are kind of familiar with working with them, it should be easy for people to work on benchmarks. And we can kind of build our library of benchmark tests.
Okay, sounds good. So, because I have not looked at this for quite some time, where do we now end up with locating the benchmark jobs definitions? Is this in our repository or is this repository /.github/workflows? So we trigger another workflow, right?
Yes, so we have kind of two modes. So the primary mode that we want to kind of support is having the benchmark workflows in our repo and the Green Reviews tooling repo.
Mm-hmm.
But we also have the case like with Falco where they would like to be able to commit to their own repo. So we can also reference workflows in external repos. So we can also reference workflows in the Falco repo, for example. But if it's a benchmark that's shared across kind of multiple projects, then we can just have them in our tooling repo.
Okay, sounds good. And do we have probably like over time, as we onboard projects, we will see if there's like any workflows which are very similar, so we can have like a generic workflow which we use in the beginning and then we can refine over time or something, but we will see. I don't know if this is like part of the proposal as well.
Yeah, so this will come in the fourth proposal where we went to do an investigation to benchmarking. And that, for example, we'll look at other common benchmarks that we can deploy, or are they kind of project specific? But we're gonna tackle that in that fourth proposal. So for the implementation of proposal 2, what we're going to do is migrate the existing Falco benchmarks to the new design.
Okay, sounds good. Right. So this proposal is not about like how we do the benchmarking. It's basically just like like how do we trigger a pipeline? Where do we pull the information and so on, and how we execute the benchmark. But it's not about which library we, for example, use to spin up CPU cores and stuff like this, right?
Yes, it definitely. So it's how we execute the benchmarks as part of the pipeline, but it's not for the benchmarks themselves, which we'll tackle in the later proposal.
All right.
Yes, and so it builds on proposal 1, which is the deploy step. So we trigger the overall pipeline, and then we deploy Falco, and then delete at the end of the run. And so this proposal 2 will kind of fit in the middle of that pipeline to actually run the benchmark tests. And then in the third proposal, we'll capture the metrics. And that will also cover where we store the metrics kind of long term, because we want to have kind of persistent storage of those metrics. And now we've got the second proposal merged, we can put more attention onto that third proposal.
Sounds good. All right. Reliability at this point. Okay, cool. So basically now this is discussed and we go to the implementation. So is there like anything now which you need support with? Or anybody, like if somebody in this call has, I don't know, like half an hour or whatever to to check something and give feedback, is just like something where you need help with, like in general?
Yeah,
in group?
yes. I think what we're trying to do with implementation issues that anyone can then pick up and work on. And so, have you contributors to work on that? But for example, Valeria worked on one of the proposals, well, one of the implementations of proposal 1. So I would say if people are interested, then please join the meeting, next week, and we should have some issues kind of ready to go by then if people want to kind of make a start of things. And the idea is to try and make them kind of easy for people kind of to absorb and not to have the full context. They can just get started and help with the implementation if they're interested.
Nice. Okay, sounds good. I also see Nikki just joined. Maybe like one question like in general, because I think you in the working group started like with KubeCon or so with more detailed proposals. Have like this design document and then the implementation. Is this going well, or is this like a good thing, or does it take too much time? Is this like something in general which is worthwhile to do?
Yes, from my side, I think doing the upfront design and writing the proposals, it has to take us some time, but it's meant we'd be able to kind of dig into the design process. And I think from my side, I think it's been a positive experience so far. Nikki, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think my experience also has been, it has been slower in a way, but I think it's so great to have all the details sorted from the get-go so that we don't have issues where people are confused or lost, or we have to redo work. So yeah, I think it's been good because we came across so many different little issues, like authentication or cleaning up resources or agreeing on definitions of terms. And so I think it's been a really good experience. Like, I think it's good that we did it this way. And now we have proposal 1 mostly implemented, I think, like pretty much all of it. Now we have proposal 2 merged, now opening the issues, and we're now ready to do proposal 3 and implement it. And we talked about the roadmap, and we want to have all the implementation done of the automation completely done by KubeCon NA, and then we can onboard next projects. But if the automation is done, then we can do all these other things that much faster, like other things like validating data or onboarding a new project or trying different things. But yeah, we needed this foundation first.
Yeah, sounds good. Yeah. I think it also gives like a good record in general, like what has happened and why are we going this way? And if we talk also about here risks and stuff like this in this document, I think this can also be a good reference if we build like a next generation or next iteration of the platform, and then we can see like the shortcomings and so on.
Yeah, and like there's like 80 comments on this PR, and this is not even counting the many meetings that we had where we talked about it and we changed things. So we can really see that it's better to have these discussions up front rather than just implement things without a plan. And lastly, one other benefit is that we had contributors who can take ownership. So the plan here was we did 3 proposals, or we're doing 3 proposals. For each one, there's a working group lead and individual contributor. And I think that makes it like we were able to empower members and share the load. And yeah, like Dipankar, who's in this call, and Flavia, who's I did proposal 2 with, and we have Chris doing proposal 3. So I think it's great that we were able to yeah, share the leadership.
Great. All right. Any questions for working group green reviews so far? Okay, going back to the agenda. Claire, are you with us? Have you fixed your
Yes.
headset, microphone?
Yes, I should have. Assuming you can hear me.
Yes.
Yes, okay, good. Yeah, I could see the green moving around, but I could hear nothing. Yeah, so working group comms. We obviously missed a previous meeting because I was on holiday, which actually brings us to the biggest thing for the comms group, which is we really, really need a second chair. It's other people in the group have offered to help out, etc. But getting a second chair will be really useful for actually making sure that there is that kind of second person that can help out, and I can still have Wednesdays off as needed. We're also still working on defining the working group comms roles. That's really close now. I'm going to put some time into making like an actual first draft of what looks good. We also still have a bunch of ongoing kind of bits and bobs that kind of come under the comms. So there's still translations and things going on. And there's the user stories happening. That's a project spinning up. We also have obviously the KubeCon NA coming up, so there's bits and bobs for that. I'm grabbing the slides from last at Europe for the booth and trying to put things together for that. And we've got a meeting again next week where we can go over a few things and just get back on track after a couple of weeks away after I wasn't able to be there. But if anyone thinks of anyone for the working group comms chair role that can help me out, or anyone in working group comms that wants to help as well, that would be great. There is also a ticket for it, which I'll grab and put that link. Yeah.
All right, sounds good. Yeah, I think for the chair role, we already have this issue open, but nothing is happening, and that's probably because we don't really intensify the search, or we do not really like there's like no deadline and no real, we are not pushing it that well, I think. So, I mean, probably we should change this week so we kind of have like a more like something more official or whatever, where we actually find where we are more targeting to find actually like a chair in the next, I don't know, 2 or 3 weeks.
Yeah, I agree.
Set ourselves like more of a deadline, and then we promote this. So maybe we have, I don't know, like a period of 2 weeks or so where we just, maybe we need to also reassess like any of the governance that we have, but that we kind of try to find like a replacement or like nominations in the next couple of weeks, and then getting this closer, sort of.
Yep. I think that would be a good idea.
I mean, like one of the idea was also that we have quite a bit of contribution to the Cloud Native Sustainability Week, and that there's a lot of work for them. And after that, maybe some of the leads, local meetup organizers or so on, have a bit more time and could also jump in. But I don't think
Yeah, I think that
worthwhile
would
to
be
postpone over
awesome.
time. But yeah, Jochen.
I don't quite understand how a deadline would help us here. I mean, isn't the issue that we just don't find anyone willing to do the job? Because, like, seriously, what would happen with the deadline if we had had a deadline, let's say until today? How would that have changed anything? Because I mean, we can set a deadline, of course. The question is, what do we do with that arbitrary date?
The difference is like, yeah, of course. I mean, if we now write like a comment in the issue and say there's like a deadline to apply and nobody applies, then nothing happens because we don't have any applications. But if we communicate that we, over the next 2 weeks, collect just nominations from anybody who would like to contribute, and we are having we are starting this process sort of again. This is like a different message, and it kind of gives people more reason to actually think about it and see, okay, there's like a window of opportunity or whatever. And hopefully we will get, I mean, it's also not like a full-time job, right? It's like we already have a chair, we already have like all these people that are working in the tag. It's just supporting this and then so on. So yeah, Nikki.
I had an maybe an idea. What if well, I was wondering if rebranding the working group from working group comms to something like working group sustainability advocacy, if that could be a way to incentivize people, because as much, yeah, I think it's a altruistic thing to do, but also I feel like maybe that sounds like something people would want to be part of. I don't know. It's a rebrand.
I think
it's just a marketing thing.
I think in some ways that might actually help as well with the guidance of what the comms group does as such, because right now comms is quite broad, and trying to define the roles and what the kind of distinct goal is maybe is more obvious if it's kind of sustainability advocacy, because it is what it is already, as you said. It's just marketing rebranding. So definitely something to think of. I might make a note of that and then kind of discuss in the comms group next week.
Yeah, because it is a more clear title, and the title itself gives a very clear indication of what the group does rather than comms, which makes sense if you're part of the tag and you have that context. But if you don't have context, it might not make sense.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea. I think like comms is kind of, so we took the name because we already have it like in other places in the community. So we kind of adapt them in a way. So, but like contributor experience and so on, like these are maybe all a bit technical, and communications as well as maybe a bit too technical in the way that we communicate and so on. Maybe advocacy is like a better, more intriguing word, which phrases better what we are about in this working group. Yeah, that's a good good point, yeah.
And I guess a very, I don't know, very real incentive. Maybe people are more, I think having co-chair of working group sustainability advocacy, that is like a very shiny title that maybe will incentivize people to come and volunteer.
True, yeah. It's better it's better than comms. Like
I guess by proxy, I also get a nice shiny marketed title.
You're giving yourself a promotion.
No, I believe you did, Nikki.
Oh, wow.
all right. So how about we discuss this in the next working group comms meeting, and then if that's something we would like to move forward, then we can open up an issue and then get input also from the other tag leads and so on. And then we can rename it if we like. Jochen?
I like Nikki's idea because I believe that this may help, even though I'd be skeptical if people just apply to have a fancy title. I'm generally not a big fan of that, but yeah, I do see the point, and I do agree with it. Additionally, what has been holding myself back so far is that it is really hard for me to tell whether I can fit these responsibilities into my life work schedule, and what does it actually mean to co-chair this with Claire or whoever. um so maybe that would also help to kind of not only advertise a fancy title, but also highlight what you will be doing and roughly how much time that'll take. I remember I talked with Claire on EU, KubeCon EU, about this a little bit, and I was hesitant to apply because we've had that issue for a while now. Even though I see that this is really important, and I'm generally somebody who wants to help more than I can actually fit into into my 24 hours a day. And I can assume that, or I assume that this is something that not only I struggle with. And additionally, what I want to say is that we are kind of preaching maybe to the wrong crowd here, because I believe that already a lot of people here have a lot of responsibilities. I mean, we obviously have already chairs, co-chairs, and important people on this call, and I'm wondering how we can address people outside of this bubble, and
Yeah.
advertise to a different crowd. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So about the responsibilities, so we have like a role document where we kind of have very roughly describe like what is the idea of a chair, what is the idea of a working group chair, and so on. There's like some things, for example, like hosting the meetings and things like this. But in general, like also, I mean, it depends like what the working group is about, right? So the work for working group green reviews chair is very different from the work that the comms chair does. But in general, like hosting meetings, thinking about how to improve the tech in this front, in this direction. Is it technical, or is it like organization wise, or is it contribution? Is it about outreach and so on? How can we improve this? So steering this effort, this is like kind of the idea. And then also being more or less like responsible in terms of, okay, we would like to also communicate to the community what we have been up to in the last months during KubeCon, for example. So telling the community about what we did and so on. This is also sort of part of the job or part of the role. And then at the end, it comes down to assessing on your own if this makes sense for you. And the idea is that we have projects where you can participate. You can also lead a project. You can contribute to a working group. You can attend meetings, and then you can see over time, okay, how does it work? Is this like something that would be interesting for myself? Does it make sense? Is it like a good step? Hosting these meetings is like a good experience for me in general to be better as an engineer or whatever. So then you need to evaluate it on your own. And then, I mean, if you're like in a position of this chair role, you also have more, like, you're more in a position also to make changes, right? So you should think about like, what is the next step for working group comms or green reviews or whatever. So maybe there's like some things that are not going well or could be improved, or it's like something that we forgot about or we don't have the capacity to think about. So that's like something where you can then be like in a position to actually make sort of a difference in the working group or in the tag. So yeah, I think we can, there's like also the letter document that I wrote, I don't know, like a year ago or something, which kind of talks about what is the difference and between the different roles and so on. It's like more like a blog post style, but it's part of the governance. Maybe that could also be helpful. But yeah, I agree that if we send out messaging about everything, it would be good to be clear about like what is the expectation. So we have, I think that's very good that Claire is working on the role handbooks, for example. We could also have like something similar for the chair itself. Yeah. And then there was also something. Yeah.
Sorry, don't want to interrupt. Finish your thought.
Yeah, maybe just one more thing. Like there was also like another part of what you talked about was like outreach, and people that are in this call will likely not be, maybe besides yourself, I don't know, but probably all the other ones in this call will not be sort of like have like the capacity because there's like in some other ways already involved in the tag. So 100%. So we need to reach out to other people to actually get like contributions. So as I said, like before, my hope lies sort of with the Cloud Native Sustainability Week folks, but any other person sort of in the community could also be a fit. So we need to spread this a bit better, the word better. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And what I meant with getting a better picture is what are the expectations, right? I mean, communicating events stuff can be done one way and another way. Is the expectation that this communication effort is basically I give ChatGPT a prompt, ChatGPT writes some LinkedIn post or whatever for me. I paste that, I post that, done? Or is it something that there should be bespoke content? It should be double checked. We want to live up to a higher standard in our communication here, which I do believe we do. I'm not 100% sure though. So, you know, this is just a really small example of you can do this thing with vastly different expectations. And I think that is then reflected in the time that you need for this. And I mean, I myself, with being the project lead for the landscape document, I already spend a lot of time for the tag, for something that needs to be communicated or is a piece of communication itself. And I can tell you, this is not easy. Yeah. just something I struggle with. So yeah, I like the idea with the Sustainability Week people, the organizers. That's actually a nice point.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, not too sure about the question, but if it's more about like what are our own standards, then our own standards is kind of like what we set ourselves, right? So we set ourselves the highest standards that are kind of reasonable for us, I would say. And then it comes down to realizing that we do open source work and we have a limited amount of time, and then we need to manage our time and then match it against the quality of the work that we put out. So yeah, I mean, I think there's like a general discussion, right? So a general thing. It's not specific to the working group comms work. And then you can pin it down to specific questions. So for example, about AI, do we want to make use of ChatGPT? And then, I mean, why not? Of course, that would be my standpoint. I mean, it's like just like a calculator, right? Why should you not use it? The question is just like, how do you use it? And what is the output? And at the end, you're sort of accountable for the output that you generate, right? So, and if the output is not as good, then you should reassess maybe how we use different kinds of tools. But I think this is like something that we don't really need to address right now. Maybe it's like something that comes across during reviews. So if we, for example, write together as a tag, a maintainer talk or whatever, and then these sort of problems or things come to light during those iterations, right? Or if we write documents, proposals and so on, we need to kind of assess ourselves. Is like the quality of our work that we are happy with, or do we need to push for higher quality or whatever? All right. Right. So we kind of moved a bit away from working group comms, but I think, right, about so the leadership, the comms chair role would be good to set like some kind of deadline together with just spinning up this process again and combining this with more outreach to people that are outside of the tag, which are not already part of any kind of leadership role or whatever role, or we know they are not kind of have the capacity to do it. Maybe we can target it also a bit more towards the cloudnative sustainability week folks. Right. And then Claire, I think you talked about the role definitions. And yeah, I think that's kind of it, right? Yeah. Okay, sounds good. There's like, I think like one thing, there's like KubeCon India coming up soonish. I'm not actually too sure about the exact date, but as far as I'm aware, Nancy and Siam are about to propose a talk. So would be good to have them, one of them maybe in the next comms meeting to talk about it, or open up an issue if it's like, if they want to talk about the tag in general. Right. Are there any questions or things in terms of working group comms stuff? I also see Marlo is in the meeting.
Yeah, apologies. I somehow thought it was the fifth week, but completely isn't.
No worries. There was a nice idea from Nikki to potentially rename working group comms to working group advocacy, because it's a bit more catchy, first of all, and second of all, it's less bulky. So it's like a better word, maybe gives maybe a bit more, people would be maybe a bit more interested in contributing.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I think it's a good plan. But we should ask Claire since she's the one who does most of it.
All right, let's talk.
Yeah, I think we're gonna have a conversation about it next week in the comms working group. So
All right, sounds good. Then let's move on to the next project updates. So best practices for Kubernetes clusters. As far as I'm aware, people are on vacation in this project, so nothing happened. And it's kind of like a problem because I think nothing happened for like 6 weeks or so. So we should talk about it, do some things, Marlo, about this project and see how we can get this back on track and see if what the status is. We have a bunch of issues open, but as I said, I don't think much has happened or anything has happened.
Which project? The work green reviews?
No. The Kubernetes clusters, sustainable clusters project from Martha and Jakob.
Yeah, I don't know that one.
All right, let's maybe think about it async, what we can do to get this back on track, and then we can talk about it in the next meeting or in between.
Yeah. To your projects, you need to add the AI paper one.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, edit it for now here to the open discussion items. But
Yeah, it's actually a project at this point.
sounds good. All right. The green scraper. So as far as I'm aware, Hussein and Christina are working on a bunch of implementation issues. I think it's coming to a close soon, so that's good. Christina is on vacation now, so I don't think there's a lot happening. But I think, as far as I'm aware, this is looking good. Cloud Native Sustainability Week. I was not able to attend last meeting, but from what I've seen over messages, and Nancy also wrote a couple of things, is that everything is kind of on track. We are missing, or not missing, but we are still require a bit more outreach to get people excited about the event, so that we have more people signed up to organize local meetups. I think over the last 2 days or so, a bunch more is signed up. I'm not sure what the actual number is right now. But yeah, I think getting people to organize a meeting is now, for the next month or so, probably the main thing. And everything else is kind of, I think, okay, but we will see. Right. And then I think, Jochen, you added another one, the landscape document rewrite.
Yes, I did. As I promised last time, I am back on track on finishing this. And there have been some very helpful comments. And I promised I would add a chapter about life cycle assessment. And because there's been a comment about that. And I do agree, we should talk about this. However, it didn't end up as one chapter. It is a little larger. I integrated it into a lot more of the text. Still not 100% happy with how that is integrated, but yeah, it is a good start for now, I think. And right, so that happened. I integrated that, and I believe we can now focus on the latter stuff, which the other thing that we talked about, what canceled? What was canceled? Did I miss anything?
Yeah, so the landscape document, we talked about this, I think, was it a couple of meetings ago, that we will move this to like an annual document. so that we
So what?
publish it once a year, end of the year or so,
All right.
or mid of the year, and like a report, a white paper of what has changed and what is the things that we saw in the last year. But we have not wrote this up in an issue, so that's like something that we talked about.
Oh, okay.
We don't.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, we need to. This is like something which is not followed up on how we move forward with the landscape document. It's sort of just we move away from this running document because we have a problem of getting contribution. And if we have like a white paper, it's more scoped, it's more focused on the year. We have like a date, like a finalized date when we would like to publish it. It's something that you can take a look at certain times. So we have, I think it's overall like a better format. And that was also feedback from the TUC, like one of the ideas they proposed. Yeah.
All right. Okay, I understand. Okay, can we just talk about this, or because
Yeah, of course.
so here are my 2 cents about this. I do think it's nice to have such an annual document as kind of a like recap, like end of the year, look back, what happened, high points, low points, stuff like that. Very important, very interesting idea. I like that. But I think it's missing the mark because such an annual update or summary document won't, because so what's the landscape for? And from what I understood, it serves the purpose that people who are new to this, who have something to do with cloud, just wanna ease into the topic, right? They want to read something that helps them understand their place in this whole system, and what they can do to improve the system or to improve the footprint that they're responsible for. And I feel like that will not, like, how are you going to reach that goal with an annual summary / update? That aside, the other point about it is we already saw that we have, I mean, I've been the only one working on the landscape document rewrite, except for some very helpful comments, and as I mentioned. How will that change if we do this annually? I mean, this would basically be a smaller scope rewrite of the landscape document annually, right? And as we've seen with the comms co-chair, that now has a glorious title. And I mean, before it also had a title. I mean, co-chair, that sounds like something. Rewriter of some annual, I don't want to call it newsletter, but I'm just going to do for dramatic effect. I'm going to call it a newsletter. Is not very prestigious. So I would assume that this would be tough to find a crowd for to write annually.
Yeah.
Right.
So
help me out with, like, what's the plan here?
Yeah. So right. So the idea exactly. So the idea was that we have like a like this long document or whatever, and you don't have any idea about cloud-native sustainability. You can take a look. You can browse through the document, and you can learn a bunch about like what you can do, what are all the aspects, and so on and so forth. The question is like if we will ever hit this mark, and if we have doubts about this, like how can we give folks more guidance? Because I think like in general, this is like one of the main goals that we should try to achieve as a tag, right? So we, especially like in our field, as we try to understand what sustainability in the cloud is all about and what we can do, I think this is like a very important aspect. So I think like one of the other approaches that we have, which is more less, so this is like an open-ended thing, right? So the landscape document is like an open-ended, without any end. This will continue to evolve over time, which kind of is fine, but I think it does not work for us too well in the past. So the other idea that was kind of building up at the same time was the idea around user stories, and that we talk about what companies, institutions, and so on have on their own, and telling those user stories so others can learn from it. So that's like this other project that we are trying to start, and we have a couple of people that are interested in this area, and it would be good to start this soon. But some people are on vacation and so on. But I think this, for example, goes in a similar direction, that it could help people to sort of understand, okay, this company thinks about sustainability in those terms and so on, and then they can understand this. So I think there's like diversifying sort of like how we tackle this overall goal of advocacy and getting people closer to understanding what sustainability in cloud native ecosystem is about. So I think makes sense. It is also a bit easier if you have smaller chunks of work with a more sort of like a scope version. So this is just this user story. We don't talk about, I don't know, Microsoft's data centers. We just talk about our data centers, right? So, and this can be like a valuable information itself, right? We don't always need to talk about everything. So scoping this, I think, is a bit easier. And then, and the same idea is also with the yearly report, right? And maybe there's also room to have like a running document at some point. So if we write this yearly report, we can also pull some things and write this to the running document. Maybe this could be like a side effect, right? So, I mean, this is like not like a finished discussion, right? It's like something I think which makes, from our discussions that we had in the past meetings, a lot more sense to, first of all, time box this, and also scope wise have a bit more clarity. So people, if we communicate like half a year before, we will publish this document, and this is like one of our main goals in the tag. The same thing also with the Cloud Native Sustainability Week, right? If you communicate like half a year before or months before, we will have this event during this time, then the question is obviously like how much contribution you will have. But if we set this like as a high goal, it will happen, right? So we will publish something, for sure. And then at the end, eventually maybe we will see more contribution. That's the hope. All right, but we just have 8 minutes left in this meeting, so it would be good maybe also to talk about the AI stuff that happened over the last month or so. And we have now a weekly meeting to talk about sustainability in AI. Marlo, would you like to talk about it?
Yeah, sure. We are still looking for more contributors. The current set of contributors are wonderful, and most of them come from the Runtimes working group for AI, and are specific to a particular company. So having other people go look at it as well would probably be super useful if you have time. Meetings are on Thursday mornings at 6 a.m. PST. I apologize for the time, but one of the people is joining us from Singapore, and it wasn't kind to be later. That's a quick summary. There is progress being made on the paper. The end result will be a paper. We are currently working on scoping it down because it's currently over scoped.
Sounds good. All right. Is there any, do we have any open discussion items? No, I don't think so.
We should probably look for more demos for the next one. If we can find one, that's good.
Yep, that's true. Okay. Good. All right. Is there anything anybody would like to talk about before we close the meeting? All right then. And thanks everybody for joining. Hope you all have a good rest of the day and talk to you maybe tomorrow in the AI meeting or next week. Right. I will stop the recording.
Thank you. I won't be there tomorrow, so Leo's going in my stead, I think.